Hey, I'm Matt with Meat Church. Let's make North Carolina style sweet pulled pork. Well, this is part of our popular hardcore barbecue series on our YouTube channel. This is actually the third season of that. And with each season, we can't not do pulled pork. We have a ton of pulled pork videos, just kind of your normal standard pulled pork. We've got no wrap pulled pork. We've got one we call Mexican pulled pork. Today we're calling this North Carolina style. And you know, that's probably open to a little interpretation. And why are we calling it that? Well, you can follow this method no matter what type of pork you want, but we're going to use some Cheerwine today, which I'm a huge fan of. It's a North Carolina product. It's a cherry soda. If you've never had it, it's great. I can actually get it here in Texas. So we're going to do a couple things with that. We're going to spritz with it, and we're also going to make a barbecue sauce with it. The other reason I'm going to call it North Carolina style is we're going to use my buddy Michael Letchworth's recipe for coleslaw that we're going to top on it. Now, if you don't like to put coleslaw on your pulled pork sandwich, you can serve it on the side. But if you go to Sam Jones Barbecue in North Carolina, you're not going to be able to go there and have a sandwich, like a whole hog sandwich, without it having coleslaw on it. And I'll show you the recipe here in a bit. It actually comes from his partner Sam Jones' cookbook, and it's great. But let's jump in. And this is going to be very straightforward. And like I said, no matter what type of pulled pork you want to do, this will work for you. So this is a 10.5 pound bone-in pork butt, Prairie Fresh, got at our local grocery store, and I don't have to do a whole lot to it. I love all the intermuscular fat in pork. I'm just going to do very minimal trim. So right here on the money muscle, you'll see there's kind of some excess that I'm just going to shave away. And I do that so that I can get more bark on the pork. And then honestly, I don't want to eat all of this fat that's right here on the top. So basically just going to cut off anything kind of loose and errant, and that's it. Look on the back. You know, I like to leave the fat cap, but I don't want it to be too thick like it is right there. So I'll just kind of shave it down in a couple places for the same reasons I mentioned on the meat side. There we go. That looks good to me. Super simple. So what's our first step going to be? I'm actually going to put a binder on my pork. I prefer mustard binders, so we're going to do that first. Binder's a way for your seasoning to adhere in the beginning and also stay adhered during the cook. And my cutting board set up here, I'm using a topper board where I like to do my raw prep, and then I can get rid of that and clean up, put the final on my big block. All right, that looks good to me. Let's talk seasoning. I don't spend enough time talking about our products. I always tell you what I use and say make it your own, use your own. But one thing I'll say about Meat Church products, they're the freshest in the industry. If you order from meatchurch.com, it's been in a bottle generally less than 2 days, which is pretty unheard of. And if you get it from a dealer, as long as they just got it, it's the same way. We blend it to order. A lot of options on pork. My OG Honey Hog is amazing on pulled pork, very popular with our North Carolina customers. I love our Texas Sugar, I love our Holy Gospel, but today I'm gonna use my all-purpose, the Gospel. It's known as the best color in barbecue, and after we let this sit and adhere, you'll see why. It's gonna have a beautiful bright red mahogany color, and it's fly season in Texas. We keep a super duper clean kitchen, but you cook outside as much as I do, they're kind of a fact of life, so I'm sure you'll see them buzzing around here trying to get in on this action. All sides, and go heavy. This is a big piece of meat. You're not gonna hurt it. I like to go liberal with this. I'm just gonna pat it on. Anywhere you think you need to add, go for it. This is probably the meat that I season the most liberal of anything that I do. Think about it, 10 pounds of meat, you're gonna pull it at the end. You need a lot of seasoning, and it's impossible, honestly, to put too much on here. All right, it's looking pretty good. I tell folks, give yourself at least 15 minutes, preferably an hour, for this to sit, or if you've got all the time in the world and you're a smart prepper, do this the day before. Wrap this up in your fridge and let it sit. It's not gonna hurt it, and cook it the next day. So I'm gonna let this sit here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk cooking. Well, you can see it's totally adhered now. All this wetness around here is the seasoning pulling the moisture out, so I feel good about this at this point. So let's talk about cooking. This is a very easy recipe. My setup today is a Traeger Ironwood XL, and I'm running cherry pellets. Now, I've been saying this a lot lately. You can replicate my barbecue recipes on whatever type of cooker you have. So as long as you're running like an indirect setup, it can be an offset Kamado, 2-zone fire in a kettle, whatever the heck you want. But you know I love my Traeger. So why am I running cherry? Well, I'm a big fan of hickory with pork and a big fan of cherry. Anytime we competed with pork, I like to mix cherry in because of the color that it brings. Also, my thought was cherry is what's in Cheerwine, so it definitely goes with it. And this is honestly gonna be a crazy easy cook. So I'm gonna get rid of this one, because for you guys, I've got one in there that has been cooking 7 hours. So what have I done to it before I pull it out? Well, I placed that pork butt in meat side up, and about 2 hours into the cook, I took a bottle of Cheerwine, poured it in my hog sprayer, and I spritzed it every hour with Cheerwine. Add a little moisture, obviously add a little bit of the red color, and so I'm excited to pull it out and see what it's looking like. So let me get this pan, see how we did. Woo, 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 woo. She's pretty. So you can see it's got amazing color already. Let me get my Thermopin out of my pocket. And so we're just over 170 here. But first, you want the visual cues of the color and the bark that you're looking for. And once you get that, that's when I start probing. And you can see it's like beautiful bright red, so it looks super duper pretty. You don't have to wrap from here if you don't want to. You could just continue this on and cook it all the way to tender. We're going to wrap it today because of the way I'm serving it. I want that intermuscular fat to break down, and all the juices that kick out of it, I want to capture those, run them through a fat separator, and I like to mix my pulled pork in that to make it just super nice and juicy. So I'm just gonna wrap with a piece of foil, and I'm gonna go right back in at 250 to finish this off. Now from here, if you were in a hurry, you could increase the temperature. There's nothing magic about 250. You could go 275, 300, 325, 350 if you really were in a big time hurry. If you need it to ride a while, you can drop it down and let it ride. I always tell people, adjust recipes to your life and kind of when you need this. The other thing is you could go ahead, finish it, and then you could hit keep warm, which is 165, and you could hold it for a really long time and shred it when you're ready. So this is super easy, super affordable, and very hard to screw up. So we're going back in, and I'll see y'all when it's tender, which is gonna be just north of 200 degrees internal temperature. While the pork is cooking, now it's a good time to make our coleslaw and also our barbecue sauce. So let's talk about this. I mentioned Michael earlier. He comes down to my house at Memorial Day every year. Out at our lake house, we smoke a whole hog, and he makes his slaw, and it's awesome. And I grew up eating slaw. My granny made it, and I could just eat the entire bowl all the time. This is a sweet coleslaw. It's in Sam's book, Sam and Daniel's book, actually. It's their sweet coleslaw. I'm gonna show you how to make it. The recipe is down in the description on meatchurch.com. You could eat this immediately, but it's best if it sits 2, 3, 4 hours. So all the juices come out of the slaw. Just trust me on that. You could eat it immediately if you had to, but I'd let it sit. So that's why we're gonna make it now. So let's get our wet ingredients. We've got 1 1/3 cup sugar. We've got 1/3 cup of mayonnaise. Of course, we use Duke's. 1/4 cup salad dressing, AKA Miracle Whip. And then 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard to mix it up. Mix this first. All right, set that aside and let's prepare our cabbage. 1 head of cabbage, remove the outer leaves. I like to set it on the root end, cut it in half. Then you want to remove the core, which cut a V out. Cut against the grain. Now from here, this is preference. At Sam Jones Barbecue, they mince this up really small. Since I'm building a sandwich with it, I'm gonna leave it a little bit longer. So when you come across the other direction, basically make the strips just up to your preference of size. That was a big head of cabbage, so I'm just gonna do that much. Mix it all up. Now all we've gotta do is mix in our wet mixture, and we're good to go. We're gonna go put it away in the fridge. All right, it takes some serious mixing, but that's good. So this is ready to go off to the fridge. So let's talk about our barbecue sauce. If you guys remember our Dr. Pepper chicken video, wildly popular, we basically made the same sauce. We did make the same sauce from that recipe, except we replaced the real sugar Dr. Pepper with pure cane sugar Cheerwine. I'll put a card up here for that recipe so you guys can check that out. But this sauce recipe, again, down in the description, also at meatchurch.com. It needs 30 minutes, basically. When you bring the ingredients together, you want to simmer it for 30, 35 minutes, kind of to your desired thickness, and then you're good to go with that. So we've already got it made. So I'm off to the fridge with this slaw, and we'll be back when that pork is done. Well, it's been a couple hours since we wrapped. I know we're tender, but let's check it. So my instant read thermometer, what I do at first is I'm not looking at the number. I'm just feeling through here, and I can tell you there's no resistance. It's just like super tender. 201, 202, we're good to go. Now, anytime you foil meat, obviously you're braising it and the bark isn't gonna look as pretty after, but that's okay because we're shredding all this up. But you can see big time bone protrusion. And we're good to go. I need to let this cool off. And here's a fat separator that I talked about. Technically a great pancake device, to be honest with you, if you got kids and like to make pancakes on your griddle. So I just pour this in here, and then the fat will rise to the top, and then what you got at the bottom is the good juice. So after we shred this, I'll leave this out, and then you can just dredge the pork back through that. So we're gonna let this cool off, and then we're gonna build sandwiches. All right, our pork has cooled down a little. Now, I'll tell you, because I heard a lot about this when I shredded lamb in the pulled lamb video. People said, that's the first time I ever saw you rest it down. Well, we're not slicing brisket, we're not slicing a steak. When you're pulling a meat and you're putting all of this back in it, it gives you the ability to pull quicker if you want to. So I'm gonna pull the bone out, and then I'm just gonna start pulling this. Woo, good old clean bone pull. Pull the money muscle off, my favorite part, and I'm just gonna sit here and pick this apart. So juicy, it got me. And you can see it's still pretty warm, but look at that smoke in there. Gorgeous. I'm just gonna pull this apart delicately with my hand, and then I'm gonna taste it, which actually I'm gonna taste it here in just a second. So good. So good before we even do anything else. All right, so let me get all this pulled. All right, that's good and pulled. So here's what I like to do with pork at this point. First off, we're gonna see how the fat's separated. Let's get all that back in there. Mix it up. And I like to give it a little taste right here. And this is a big tip. You should definitely add what I call raw seasoning back in here at this point. I will usually say, oh, how do we do? Super juicy and delicious. But big pop of flavor hitting it with seasoning at the end. A lot of times I like to hit it with my honey hog hot, which really wakes up your taste buds, and it's mixed in this. Don't worry, even my kids eat it. Let's build a sandwich. We gotta hurry, it's like Fly-mageddon out here today. I always love the people that jump in the comments and talk about the flies, because to me it's like, tell me that you don't cook outside without telling me that you don't cook outside. Because the only way to get rid of flies this time of year in Texas is to cook inside. Cheerwine barbecue sauce. Optional, but delicious. By the way, let's look at this slaw. Look at all that juice that's in there. That's why you want to let it sit in the fridge for a couple hours, because even Sam in his book talks about how good that juice is. Yeah, this is all for me, so I can do this. So let's see how it is, plain. I'm gonna tell you how it is. I 100% could eat that whole bowl. That reminds me of my granny. She always made slaw in Alabama after church on Sundays. So here's your North Carolina way. And I'm gonna tell you, first time I saw this, I was like, ain't no way, I'm not interested. And then I had it. And I like it, but I said this in the beginning, if that's not your thing, then just do it on the side. But like my grandparents always say, don't knock it till you try it. Here we go. Dude. That's a damn good lunch right there. So good. Pulled pork, cooked to perfection, nice and sweet, beautiful color from the gospel. That barbecue sauce is money. So good. You'll have to make this. Again, it's in our hardcore barbecue playlist. Check that out. meatchurch.com. All of our spring merch that we drop, you guys have been hammering, still out there, so check it out. Our recipes are always at meatchurch.com. When they release on Wednesday at 10, it becomes the banner at the top of our website, and in our recipes are links to YouTube videos. So anytime you're searching for a recipe on there, you can easily find the YouTube video. Appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a beat. We'll see y'all next week.